Welcome to my last video of the identity series in my channel. This is video number 20 and it is sort of the summary of the whole story that I wanted to share with you. At the beginning I started with explaining mainly why this topic is interesting for me and what is it, this identity thing. And the point that is very important for me is about people that have multiple origins. So if you have parents that come from two different cultures, or even more parents from two different cultures, and your family has moved to a third country, or all those possible constellations that are possible in today's world and since many years already. So it's nothing very new. Mobility, of course, has increased over the last years. So in a summary, the question is, what are the points that can influence your identity? And let me start and for sure finish with the one sentence that, in my opinion, is the most important one, which is, whatever you feel as being your identity is right. You are the only person who has the right to define what is your identity. And if you look at all the single topics that I will enlist right now, you will see that there are manifold. And some of those might influence you and some of those might not. And I always describe it as a sort of puzzle. So you have all those puzzle pieces. As an example, if your mother is Chinese and your father is from France, and you grow up in Australia, you might feel Chinese, or you might feel French, or you might feel Australian, or you might feel two of them, or all the three of them, or none of them. If you look at the interview that I had with the mobility manager Anna Seidel, she has multiple origins, and she says she doesn't feel being from one of those countries or feeling a strong bond with any of those countries that might influence her identity. She feels as a global citizen, and also that is perfect. The more, and this is the other important aspect of the series of identity, why I made it, is that children growing up in that situation don't know how to handle it. They don't know that they have to be aware of the single puzzle pieces that influence their identity, or that might influence their identity. Of course, children grow up and that's it. They don't think about it that much. And the same was for me. It took me long years until I found out why I was feeling an outsider in so many places and in so many situations. And until I stopped people when they were trying to tell me what I was in their opinion. They have no right to do that. And they for sure don't mean to harm you, but sometimes people feel they can tell you whatever you are. Normally they don't say it, but they make you feel like it. And to be self-confident enough to think, I don't care what other people think, because I built my identity on my own, is a difficult step for an adult. Imagine how difficult it can be for a child who is not aware of the whole situation. So I'm addressing mainly parents and try to give them the support so they can help their children and talk to them and tell them, listen, these are all your puzzle pieces, and you are the one who says, I feel this piece as mine and this piece I don't feel as mine. And that they are allowed to define it for once and to redefine it 2 weeks later or 5 years later or whenever. Because identity is also something fluid. It changes. It can change. It doesn't have to. But the only one to decide about it is the person themselves. So, let me just start with the first point, which might be the most visible and the one where you think the very first about, is the ethnicity. And we finally don't talk anymore about races, because biologically there aren't more than one human race, but we talk about ethnicities. And this is, of course, one of the important points. And as point which includes this ethnicity, the very first thing we have to think about is genetics. What kind of genes do you have? And if you look around you, mainly on the internet, there are so many people who are taking those DNA tests to find out where they come from, because mainly in the US, which is a melting pot of origins, people partially don't even know where they come from. And maybe also for me, I think I know what different DNAs I do have, but if I would take a DNA test, which doesn't interest me, but if I would take it, maybe a country or an area or a kind of genes or an ethnicity would pop up that I'm not aware of, because DNA is transferring over centuries and centuries and centuries. Of course, getting lower in percentage every generation, but there might be traces of a country, of a population in my genes that I am completely not aware of. Can be, I don't know. And if you are interested in that, then just take such a DNA test and find out. And if it doesn't interest you, fine. So again, it is only the decision of the person to want to find out or not. All of those aspects are somehow interwoven with each other. So the next point is the country. Which country are you from? And this is normally what people want to know when they ask you. You know, they want to know from which country are you coming from originally, or your ancestors or your parent or whatever. And not always it is a nasty question. Listen to your intuition. Normally it feels very well if this question is due to positive interest or not. And if the persons want to know more about that or not. If you just give one short answer and this is it. Or if it's a nasty question, and then it's better to just, stand up inside of you and just give the answer and let it be. But also countries are nothing set in stone. So borders are shifting, and there are countries that are founded and countries that unfortunately are conquered. And so through history also this changes. There might be areas which 50 years ago were part of one country and now are part of another country. What is your answer if somebody asks you, where are you from? Are you referring to the borders 50 years ago, or are you referring to the borders now? Of course, you can go deeper into detail if this person is really interested in your history, but you decide what you feel. Do you feel the borders 50 years ago, or do you feel as yours the situation which is given currently? It's your decision. And again, connected with the topic of country is the topic of populace. And this is also something that is not set in stone, that is not defined by politics or by borders. So there are populations that feel as a unity and are existing in different countries. So if you look at the Basque people, they are living in big parts in the Spanish area and partially in the French area. Or the Kurds, they are living in Turkey but also in other countries. So a person who is a Kurd living in Turkey, does this person feel as Kurdish or as Turkish? I guess we know the answer, but only this single person has the right to define it for themselves. And it's very important to think about it. Coming together with this populace topic is language. And this is why I made even 2 videos about language, because the language is somehow can be the expression of your identity. So there are people, in the meantime, I guess already a lot of people who are growing up bilingual or multilingual, which in my opinion is a very good thing, because it opens up your brain, it trains your brain, and every language somehow builds up an additional part of an identity. And of course it is opening up the world to you. If you can go to several countries and can speak the local language, or maybe the local language where you go visiting as a tourist is very similar to one of your original languages. Great, use it. And normally you lose the fear of talking in new languages because you have already learned 2, 3, 4 of them. So come on, let's go with the 5th one. And then we have a few topics within this identity that might seem strange. And the first one is politics. So the basic question for me was, how is the identity of a person that is growing up in a liberal country, in a democracy, and how is the identity affected in a country where the government defines everything, where maybe a religion defines everything, and you are not free to decide what you want to wear, or you have no freedom of expression or of thinking even sometimes. So this, in my opinion, is highly influencing the building of the identity, and it might be worth to think about it. Religion is the same thing. How are religions affecting the building of your identity? And it's not a good or bad question. It's because when you grow up, you grow up with a religion or not with a religion, and this also influences you. What is a child feeling if it has, let's say, a Jewish mother and an atheist father, which is not very easy, I guess, because many religions still have this dogma that the children should just marry another person from the same religion. But this is also opening up a little bit. Young people maybe don't believe that strongly in that dogma. It doesn't mean that they don't believe in God or in their God, but sometimes they are opening up, and in the Christian world, I guess it has opened up a lot in the meantime, fortunately, because yes, I think that the religion is building the identity, but I think that you can build bridges between religions, or between a religion and a non-religion, as you can build them between countries and cultures and ethnicities. Next point is the climate, and that was a funny video, because my question was, does the climate influence the identity, and if yes, how? And at a first glimpse, it seems like a stupid topic, a stupid question. How should the climate influence your identity? But in my opinion,
it is. I guess people who live in countries where the sun is always shining or often enough shining, where you can live more outside, those people are different than the people that live in countries where you have to think about what is the weather before you are able to decide if you do something or not, or even countries where it's constantly cold. And to go outside and do something outside maybe is not pleasant, or it's a big effort because you have to dress up so much and different aspects. If you're interested in that, just go back and look at that video. It might give you some new points of view.
The next topic was about geography. And there again, thinking about it in the first step is strange, might sound weird. But again, think about it. People growing up at the seashore and people growing up between high mountains. You see? The geography has a big influence on our identity, on how we orientate ourselves within a position when we are somewhere. People who grow up between mountains orientate alongside those mountains, and people who grow up on a plain or at the sea, they take other points as to orient themselves. Also, the light and the sea was a point where pirates would come in, or other countries, other populations to conquer your country in the old history. Meanwhile, over the mountains it was a bit more difficult, except if you had elephants. Then we have the belonging, which at the very end sums up all the points that we discussed before. So where do you feel you belong? That is the crucial question. And the answer might be that you don't have the feeling of belonging anywhere, because you don't feel as part of the one population and the other population neither of the third country maybe. It's possible. So if you don't have this belonging, fine or not fine, it is what it is. And then you might feel, as Anna said, as a global citizen. And then you maybe build up your relationships with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, and feel part of that maybe even global group of people that you connected with over the world, over all the different places where you lived. And you don't have the connection with an area, with a continent, with a culture. Perfect, fine. If you do have the sense of belonging towards a country or a culture, then for sure you know this feeling of nostalgia.
And nostalgia, I call it a mean animal because it just jumps on you when you don't expect it. And it is normally linked to senses. So you smell something that reminds you of home, or you hear some words in your local country of origin, or you hear a song or whatever. It jumps on you, and it sometimes brings your eyes to get dry. And also for those moments, you just have to go through it and remember that, yes, you have a strong bond to that place, to that country, to that culture, and hope that you can somehow get back there soon.
In the next video, after nostalgia, I talked about cultural appropriation. And that was an important part for me, because when you go to a different country and you start living in that country, in that culture, you might want to you might start liking things and might want to also use them, which is the most beautiful sign of you integrating in this culture. There might be people who say, yeah, that's cultural appropriation. And I get the point of cultural appropriation. If you don't believe me, go back to this video and listen to my elaborated thoughts. I think the most crucial part of it is respect and appreciation. So if you do appreciate something and you acknowledge that it's not part of your original culture, but you like it, you respect it, you appreciate it and build it into your own culture, where is the problem? So another thing to think about. And in my last video, I just enlisted the pros and cons of having multiple cultures or multiple origins.
And they were always pairs, because there are pros and cons always in the same. And the best way to deal with the situation, if you are in a new country, is to start integrating yourself into this new culture and still maintaining the bridges and the connections to your original culture or cultures. And that, in a summary, is the content of my last video. So, as a final question, what do you do with all that?
The second important thing after the first one was to become aware of this topic and to support your children by developing their own identity. This means you have to communicate. You have to talk to them and you have to show them. So if you want to, just take a piece of paper and write all those single topics on this paper, or make an Excel list and write all those topics in, and then you insert, if you are the mother, you insert the countries where you come from, your religion, your geography, your climate, and the same you do for the father. And maybe you come from, your parents came from another country again, so maybe this influences too, so put it in the list. And you are now living in a third or fourth country, and then put that in the list. And then you see all the puzzle pieces, all the bits and bytes that might be influencing yourself and your child within your identity or their identity. And then you can start talking about it. Do I feel this as a part of me, or do I have any energy connected to this topic, or to this country, or to this climate, or to this religion, or whatever? Just feel inside you. Identity is no science. Identity is emotion. So you don't have to relate on facts. You can use the facts to feel inside yourself and feel which ones of them are important for you and which ones are not. And those that are not important, fine. You define who you are. So, having said that, this again, as mentioned, was my last video about the identity topic. I hope it was helpful for you. I hope you had some new ideas based on what I was talking about. If you didn't see all of them up to now, just please go back to my channel, look into the identity series, and look through them. Maybe some of them might be interesting for you too. In any case, please, if you liked, give me a like. Subscribe to my channel. There are a lot more things in my channel than this identity topic. But I always try to show different aspects and open my mind mainly. And I would love to hear comments from you, what you think about it, what you have experienced, what you think mainly. So thank you very much for your company, for your time, and see you soon. Oh, and as always, be kind. Ciao.